When it comes to high performance layer one blockchains, two names are standing out as major contenders for 2025, Solana and SUI. Now, Solana has already proven itself last cycle with explosive gains, massive developer activity, and a thriving ecosystem, but now a new challenger has entered the arena, SUI, built from the ground up by ex-Meta engineers with a focus on scalability, speed, and next-gen user experience. So the question is this: which one will deliver the bigger returns this cycle? Will Solana continue to dominate, or is SUI positioned itself to become the next breakout star? My name is Paul Sampson, and this is DataDash. One of the first things we're going to look at here is on CoinMarketCap. We're going to take a look at the current market caps and circulating supplies of both Solana and SUI. Now, currently we can see that Solana is holding the number 6 spot in the overall crypto market with approximately $88 billion of market cap and around 520 million in circulating supply. While SUI is currently the 11th placeholder, sitting at approximately $13 billion in market cap with a 3.3 billion circulation. So that's something very important to note, that Solana has approximately 500 million out in circulation, while SUI does have over 3 billion. So that's about a 6 to 7 times difference, where SUI actually has more circulating supply at the moment. Now, while that does play a role to some degree, for me, I actually look at it as not that big of a deal compared to the price amount as well as the circulating supply, right? So for Solana sitting at approximately $170, it may have a lower circulating supply, while SUI is sitting at $3 with about 7 times as many. But with that price point, many people will come into the space and look for the cheaper alternatives, such as something that's $3 versus $170, and then in turn will buy more of those cheaper assets. Around this time in 2021, or a couple months before now in 2021, so around January of 2021, Solana was actually sitting just at about $1 before it had that huge explosion. And aside from the VC backing and everything that occurred with that, I have to imagine that it just being one of the cheaper alternatives is something that does draw new investors to it, because they think that they can get more bang for their buck, essentially. Another thing I like to look at when comparing a couple of assets or looking at a new asset in general to see what the potential upside could be as far as just fundamentally would go, I'd like to know what exchanges it's available on and if it's very accessible to the average person. So I look for exchanges such as Coinbase and Crypto.com, which I know that those are the most commonly used in the United States. And then, of course, the most worldwide ones such as Binance, Bybit, etc. Now, in this case, Solana is, of course, listed on every single exchange, so that's obviously really accessible to the majority of investors on the market. As we take a look at SUI as well, we come down and we can see that it is available on Binance, on Coinbase Exchange, on Crypto.com as well, BingX, Kraken, you name it, right? Pretty much every exchange has it available, so it is a very accessible token. So, folks, when it comes to the tech that's powering both these blockchains, Solana and SUI take very different approaches, and that's what makes this comparison so interesting. So let's start with Solana. It runs a unique hybrid of proof of history combined with proof of stake, and it's designed as a monolithic chain, which basically means that it handles execution, settlement, and consensus all on the same layer. And that has helped Solana push out some of the highest throughput numbers in the industry, with theoretical speeds of over 65,000 transactions per second, all with low fees and no need for any layer 2s. But that speed does come with a trade-off, and the network has had a few high-profile outages that are concerns around validator centralization due to the high hardware requirements. Now, as far as SUI goes, it's built with a modular architecture, and it approaches things very differently, using a system called Narwhal and Bullshark for consensus, and separating transaction types to optimize for parallel execution. What does that mean in practice? It means a SUI can process a massive number of transactions all at once, sometimes over 100,000 transactions per second. It's also built with developers in mind and using the Move programming language, which brings a new layer of flexibility and security. So in short, folks, Solana is fast, it's proven, and it's already has strong adoption. It's more centralized and has had some reliability issues, where SUI, on the other hand, is newer, it's more modular, and is designed for scale, but it still has to prove itself under pressure as the ecosystem grows. Next, we're going to take a look at the price potential between the two. But before I do that, I want to tell you about something that's becoming more important than ever in this market, and it's owning real assets. We all love crypto, but if you're looking to diversify into something with real world value that stood the test of time, you need to check out Kinesis. Kinesis is a modern platform built around physical gold and silver, but with a massive twist. You can actually spend it, earn yield on it, and store it securely, all while holding ownership of real fully allocated metal. This is not just paper trading or ETFs, it's actual gold and silver sitting in secure vaults around the world, and you have 24/7 access through their app and card, which is coming soon. And here's where it gets really interesting. Kinesis lets you earn a yield just for holding and spending gold and silver, and they've even created an ecosystem that rewards participation. So your precious metals don't just sit there, they work for you. And on top of all that, right now they've got a great deal exclusively for DataDash viewers. When you sign up using the code DataDash, both you and I will receive half an ounce of silver completely free. This is a great way to get started, even if you're new to metals, and it gives you a chance to experience the platform absolutely risk-free with real skin in the game. If you are looking for a smart hedge or just want exposure to hard money outside of crypto, Kinesis is one of the cleanest, most forward-thinking ways to do it. The link is down in the description below, and don't forget to use the code DataDash and claim your free half ounce of silver. So in this comparison, I'm actually taking a look at Solana back from 2021, right before it had this monster rally, basically from pennies on the dollar up to about its previous all-time high of around $275, depending on what exchange you're looking at. Now, the area of interest that really has my attention is this one right here before we got that really explosive move to the upside. And the reason being is because I believe that SUI is potentially setting up for something very close. We had this really lengthy sideways consolidation before a breakout and a run up before we had a sizable pullback, which cooled off for quite some time before that next leg up, which was very explosive. And personally, I was actually trading Solana back in this window. And I remember that this was actually just a completely technical back test of the gold pocket at that time, right? So basically I'm just pulling a Fibonacci retracement tool from the low to the high. And you can see here that we basically just pulled back 65% of the overall move here. From this move all the way up, we gave it back up 65%, came down and made a higher low here, held it as support for quite some time before we got that launch back up to the upside. Now, when looking at SUI, the comparison at the moment to me is very similar. I don't like to just overlap two assets together and just state that the exact same thing will happen, but we do see the same type of movements in the markets time and time again. And when looking at this, we have the same similar structure here as we had a sideways consolidation for quite some time. We did get a breakout to put in a really substantial high just a bit ago. And then if we take a Fibonacci retracement tool from that low to our high up here, you can see that we came down and did the same exact fashion, right? We came down to that 65%, held it for quite some time, and then now we're actually getting a bounce from that region. Now, both SUI and Solana both broke out of these regions here at around the same price levels, around 60, 70 cents. And then we had that nice move to the upside. It got a pull back to our gold pocket. Is SUI basically set up to have a similar move to where we could see $200, $300 SUI just like Solana did? Personally, I don't necessarily think that's the case, but I do feel that a comfortable area to target here upon another break to the upside is at least $9 to $12 in the mid to longer term here over the next coming months, once again, assuming that the market is continuing higher. And then from there, of course, we would want to gauge things as it came. But if we were to see a similar market cap where we saw Solana at the all-time highs of $270 back in 2021, it had around a $160 billion market cap. So if we were to see SUI reach similar levels of that, it would put the price of SUI in that time around $40 to $50. And I think that that's probably a really optimistic target at the moment, but a potential realistic one at some degree. But once again, it's something that you want to take with, as it comes with strides, not necessarily just looking at this today thinking that that's a guarantee by any means, because there's literally no guarantees in investing and trading. But that is something that I can see kind of coming down the pipeline, especially as SUI does break into these new all-time highs, once again on a higher time frame, seeing a similar move just like Solana got. Now the question becomes, is SUI or Solana the better investment potentially for the year of 2025? And for SUI, if we can reach maybe even that $9 to $12 region by the end of 2025, which is about 6-7 months, which Might be a little optimistic at the moment, but let's just have a thought experiment here. Would be about a 3 to 4x move to that placement from the current price action today, which sits about $4. With the high side of things potentially reaching as high as $40 to $50, that opens this up to be more of a 10 to 12 to 15x potential. Once again, you'd want to be able to adapt to things as it's occurring, and that's not saying that this is a guarantee by any means. So, but that is, in my opinion, the possibilities for SUI is from where we stand, 9 to 12, I think is a very reasonable target area to seek on the next major leg up. Things really got hairy, I would start to pay attention for that $40 to $50 level. So now when we look at Solana in the year of 2025, what can we, potentially look to expect as well? Well, we have some previous all-time highs that have been quite the bear to get through right here. You can see that we pushed up into it not only once, but twice so far. Basically ever since the end of 2024. It's been rejecting pretty hard. And from here, I imagine that the next approach into it would allow us to actually get through it, flip it, and then get that break to the upside, which would be a multi-year breakout, all dating back all the way to 2021. But how much more could we get here, right? Is the question. And currently we're sitting at $170. Well, assuming that we've got a low put in place here, and now that we have more data here, of course, on Solana than we do with SUI. SUI is a little bit of a wild card because we only have about a year or two of data that goes along with it. But a couple of things I'd like to do with Solana is take a look at a trend-based Fibonacci extension, right, to give us a good idea here where we could see the next major legs up to. And you can already see how we've reacted with the trend-based gold pocket. All right, so I basically have just expanded the Fibonacci extension tool to the upside, giving us the next key regions that are floating out here in space, assuming that price action breaks higher. And the first one being this gold pocket, where you could see we actually had been hitting our head on, which is essentially the previous high here. So the next approach and the next attempt through here, I would imagine we actually flip that, and it would be 384 and 561 are the next two major targets, in my opinion, that I think Solana could effectively get to upon a breakout and hold of the previous highs. And from where we are now to that region, about a 2x, potentially not the most attractive ROI compared to some others, but if you've been accumulating down in the slow and boring times, and obviously that's a multiple upon multiples at that point. And this does not have to be the end-all be-all area that we come up to, but this will most likely offer up the next major resistance, something similar to what we saw here. And judging by the fact of time at this point, looking at a true outlook of the rest of 2025, this would still be an amazing move to see unfold in front of us for the next 6-7 months. And I do think that there is potential there. It really starts kicking off once we flip this region here. But if I was to line the two up, SUI and Solana, which one was going to be the better performer, I would lean more into SUI. From where we are now, from about $3.90, targeting 9 to 12 at least, potentially up as high as 40 to 50, and then with Solana targeting up around that $561 towards the end of this year. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Solana continues to hold its spot as a dominant force, but SUI's ecosystem is growing relatively fast, and narratives can shift quickly in the space. So we'll continue to be watching for developer growth, ecosystem expansion, and capital rotation closely over the next few months. And I'll be breaking down any major shifts as they unfold right here on the channel. And also just another quick reminder for those looking to diversify beyond crypto, our channel partner Kinesis is doing something worth checking out. They're blending physical gold and silver with real yield and utility. You can actually spend it and earn from it. And right now, using the code DataDash, they're giving away half an ounce of silver just for getting started. If you're interested, please check out the link down in our description below. I'll see you all in the next video. And until then, everybody, cheers.